The 10 poorest countries in the world in 2024. Here is a list of the 10 countries that are projected to be the poorest in the world in 2024, ranked according to their gross domestic product (GDP) per capita, along with a summary of the economic and social issues that these countries are now facing. Number 10. Sierra Leone. A civil war that had been going on in Sierra Leone for more than a decade finally came to an end in the year 2002. Even though the country experienced a relatively easy transition to peace, the impacts of conflict on poverty and development are still very much felt here. This is in addition to more recent crises, such as the Ebola epidemic that occurred between 2014 and 2016, an increase in natural disasters, and the COVID pandemic. Inflation rates experienced a significant spike between the years 2021 and 2022, according to the World Bank, following several years of consistent economic growth. This is mirrored in the poverty rates for the country. It is estimated that 26% of Sierra Leoneans live below the international poverty line across the country, and that number increases to 60% in rural areas. Number 9. Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is currently experiencing the largest humanitarian catastrophe in the country's history, which is a problem that has been mostly forgotten by Western media. This disaster is the result of political turmoil, international conflict, and climate change. In 2023, conditions improved to a certain extent. The rate of inflation dropped to 0.7%, which was comparable to 14.1% in 2022. Additionally, the rate of extreme poverty declined marginally, going from 26.3% to 25.6%. The country, on the other hand, has a limited supply of natural resources, and more than 40% of Burkinabés live below the income threshold. Whether or not there is a sustained improvement in poverty rates is contingent on the stability of the security environment. Regrettably, the violence persisted throughout the years 2023 and early 2024. Number 8. Yemen. Yemen is the poorest country in the Middle East and the only country on this list that is not located in Africa as a result of nearly a decade of fighting, compounded with the consequences of climate change. This has resulted in nearly 80% of Yemenis living below the poverty line. One of the most typical economic effects of war is that it causes economic contractions and inflation. At the same time, a huge number of civilians are left without permanent employment and, consequently, salaries. This is the primary reason for this phenomenon. In 2022, a truce that was arranged by the United Nations led to some improvements in the economy. However, in 2023, a blockade on oil exports undone the work that had been done. It will be one of the keys to achieving permanent peace in this country if we address the historical economic inequities that exist within this country. Number 7. Burundi. Burundi is one of the most densely inhabited countries in the world, with over 75% of its population living below the poverty line. Burundi is a country in East Africa that is landlocked and borders Rwanda, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Tanzania. Even though the country is 80% agricultural, many people are still in the process of recuperating from a violent civil war that concluded in 2005. Additionally, they are grappling with the effects of climate change. As part of a larger government commitment to consolidating debts and improving the economic outlook, the country experienced some economic growth in 2023, 2.7%, compared to 2022, 1.8%. According to the World Bank, it is expected to reach 3.8% this year. This is happening as part of a long-term goal that is stated as emerging country in 2040, developed country in 2060. Number 6. Mali, the city of Timbuktu, which serves as the capital of Mali and is the fourth largest country on the African continent, was formerly a prosperous trading town. Located near Burkina Faso, ranked 9th, and Niger, ranked 4th, it is currently confronted with a multitude of the same security concerns as other nations in the Sahel region, in addition to the effects of the climatic catastrophe. Over the past 12 years, the country has been seeing dramatic increases in poverty levels as a result of national and regional strife, as well as the long-term impacts of the pandemic. As a result, 90% of Malians are currently living below the poverty line. Number 5. Chad. As a result of a lack of infrastructure as well as both local and regional violence, Chad is one of the poorest countries in the world. This is the case even though the country's oil reserves are connected to shoreline terminals by a pipeline that costs $4 billion. As a result, more than 42% of the population is currently living below the national poverty level, and more than 35% are living below the international poverty line, which is established at $2.15 per day. Over the past 5 years, there has been a statistically significant increase in the rate of extreme poverty. As a result of the issue in Sudan, many things have become more problematic for the government, which in 2023 anticipated an additional 600,000 refugees leaving the turmoil in the neighboring country. If this battle continues for an extended period, the humanitarian and economic situation in Chad will become much more dire. Number 4. Niger. According to the World Bank, the number of people living in Niger who are considered to be living below the international poverty line increased by an estimated 1.1 million in the year 2023. This indicates that more than 52% of the country's population now needs less than $2.15 a day to survive. This is due to a combination of factors that are comparable to those that other countries in the Sahel region are experiencing, such as interfactional violence, climate change, and an overall unstable economy that is a legacy of the country's colonial past. Inflation and rising prices for food and other necessities led to further strain being placed on the most vulnerable citizens of Niger as a result of the coup that occurred the previous year and the sanctions that followed. Number 3. The Republic of Central Africa. Even though the Central African Republic has been experiencing a crisis for more than a decade, the country has not been able to obtain the benefits that come with peace. The ongoing violence has hampered the growth of the country, as seen by the World Bank's declaration that economic activity ground to a complete halt in 2022 as a result of significant flooding and fuel shortages. According to the findings of the World Bank's research on poverty in the Central African Republic, which was published in the previous year and was the first comprehensive study of its type, 70% of the country's population lives in extreme poverty. The living conditions of the country's population of 6.1 million people are correlated with one fact: 90% of them do not have access to electricity. Number 2. The South Sudan. It is also one of the poorest countries in Africa while being the youngest. There have been 2 periods of civil war in South Sudan since the country gained its independence in 2011, and there is currently a peace settlement in place there, but it is shaky. Additionally, the nation is prone to adverse weather conditions, such as droughts and floods, which further impede progress and result in 80% of the country's people living below the poverty line. The year 2024 will be a pivotal year for the nation, and elections are expected to take place the following year in December. Number 1. Somalia. Over the past few decades, Somalia has been mired in a cycle of catastrophe, which has included severe droughts, violent conflict, widespread starvation, and ineffective governance. Approximately 70% of Somalis are living below the poverty line, and 90% of them are living in what is referred to as multi-dimensional poverty. This type of poverty is characterized by low levels of education and access to infrastructure. Ranked among the worst that the region has experienced in the past century, and has experienced additional setbacks as a result of the epidemic caused by the COVID-19 virus and the crisis in Ukraine. Although there has been some increase in the gross domestic product over the past few years, it has been very modest, Each year, the real GDP has grown by 2%, and the GDP per capita has decreased by approximately 0.8% each year. Like, subscribe, and comment to support the channel and stay updated with the latest content.